if you've hit a gym plateau and you've been stuck in the same spot for an inordinate amount of time and you think you've tried everything, this is the video for you. So we have to understand first, our bodies are a very complex biological system. And like all systems, the more ordered and regular they are, the more they work and the more accurately and efficiently they work. And this is because any system tends to revert to chaos unless ordered and acted upon. And that's what the concept of entropy is. So if you think about society and how if we were all left to just do our own thing and we didn't have these, hierarchies and social constructs, we probably wouldn't even be here now. We would have just killed each other, and then we wouldn't even be at least we wouldn't be at the level of where we are as a society now. So a highly ordered and regular system has very low entropy, while a state of complete randomness has maximum entropy. So how does this relate to hitting a plateau in a gym? So I've had a few stints in about the last 6 months where I was trying to cut weight again. And, I had done it in the past, so it shouldn't be a problem to do it now, right? It's supposed to be easier. I shouldn't have to try as hard. Well, I know how to do it, so I'm just going to start, right? And I didn't consider anything as far as, the structure of the plan or kind of how I was going to go about it. So naturally, I wasn't losing any body fat, or at least I wasn't making the progress that I had really wanted to. And so, my gym training was all over the place. Like I was hopping from program to program. I had no idea what I actually wanted to do. I was switching back and forth. Like, do I want to bulk? Do I want to cut? I don't really know. And I basically wasn't, having my having my focus in one direction for a long enough period of time. And, the reason that I didn't make progress is there was too much variability. And so variability basically just means you have so many different things moving around, right? And so any time in the past that I had ever, fallen into a gym plateau, like a gym plateau, diet plateau, whatever, it was just because my system for my goals wasn't organized enough. And I think this is the problem that most people run into is they have too many variables and not enough consistency in their training or in their diet. So now we have to ask ourselves like, okay, why are we plateauing? And so I've got 4 main things that, I think about and that I've noticed, like, these are the mistakes that I make. And so I'm pretty sure that most people can relate to this. So first, you're speaking the wrong language in terms of when it comes to load versus reps, and you're not thinking enough about stimulus. So you have to start thinking of things in terms of tension within the muscle fiber. So more load on the bar doesn't necessarily mean more tension. Stimulus can essentially be a feeling that, once you find it, it almost becomes easy to do. And of course, the whole context of this is in terms of like building muscle. I'm not talking about strength development here. I am strictly talking about hypertrophy. The second reason you might be plateauing is you hate your training. If you don't enjoy it, or at least don't somewhat like it, you're not going to have the motivation to go to the gym when you need to, and you're also not going to have the motivation to push things as hard as you need to. So try not to hate it. 3, your recovery is crap. This goes without saying. If you're not sleeping enough, you're not going to recover. If you're only getting back up to baseline, that's still not enough. You have to actually get back above the baseline that you were already previously at in order to actually grow. And so the 4th, and probably the most important one, and this is the one that, inevitably all of it comes down to, is you're not tracking enough things. And so what I mean by this is like you have way too many variables that are changing, so you can't find the one thing that you need to actually change that would drive results. And this is why it's important for, to have everything being super consistent and then changing just 1 or 2 things at a time, seeing what your body does, and then ultimately going from there. What can we do to bust through these plateaus? So first thing, take a week off from the gym. Like take a full week off, don't go, relax, and plan your next 8 weeks out. You're going to want to look at, what days are you training? What training split are you going to do? How often are you going to train each muscle group? What are your goals? Like, what are you trying to accomplish here? Are you trying to get stronger? Then you're going to need to do more strength-based stuff. Are you trying just to grow muscle? Then you'll need to focus more on the hypertrophy side and actually eliciting a proper, stimulus in order to actually grow. This is an overused saying, but it's absolutely true. If you fail to plan, then just plan to fail. Next, we need to look at our nutrition, right? So first, if you're trying to grow muscle, you want to be in a surplus. If you're trying to, fat loss, you're going to need to be in a deficit. So are you going to meal prep? Are you going to use a meal prep service? Are you going to cook all of your meals if you have the time to do that? Are you going to, get all your food from, places where you eat out at? Like, you just need to have an idea of where all of this is going to go, and you need to have consistency with it. And something that I always recommend people do, and clients that I've worked with in the past, is repeat your meals. And I know it can be kind of redundant, but if you can repeat 2 of your meals every single day, then at least you know exactly what you're getting out of those meals, and you can adjust your last meal accordingly, or you can fit in snacks where it goes, but you need things to be as consistent as possible so that, one, you know what variables to change when things aren't exactly going the direction you need to, but 2, it's going to take out, decision making. And, decision fatigue is a real thing. We have to make thousands of decisions every day. So why would you not want to take, pretty big decisions relative to a lot of the other things we do and just streamline those to where you don't even have to think about it? I cannot tell you how important that is. But for me, that was the biggest difference for me, is I just got to where I can eat the same breakfast and lunch every single day, and I alternate between 2 other meals for dinner, and then my snacks and stuff in between, protein shakes and all that stays exactly the same, and it makes it super easy to stay on track with things. So after this week goes by and you get back into the gym, you need to set a solid baseline, right? So week 1 back in the gym should be about getting into a groove. Intensity probably shouldn't be super ridiculous, because this is your week to figure out, what exercises work for you, which ones do you enjoy, and which ones do you hate. So this is the week where, you can start a program or write something up. And if you do the first set of an exercise, you're like, dude, I hate this. I don't like this. I don't feel anything. It doesn't stimulate anything. It's okay to switch it in that workout. So this first week is a trial run. You're just trying to figure out what exercises work best for me, which ones am I going to be okay doing for the next, 7-8 weeks, and then which ones am I actually going to be willing to push hard so that I can get the result that I want. So now, step 2, we're in the gym. We figured out, our process. We know that, we need as much consistency as possible and as little variable change as possible. So for now, we just need to make sure that every week we're only going to focus on one variable to change while keeping everything else consistent. So ultimately, over 4 to 8 weeks, everything should pretty much be the same outside of 1, maybe 2 things. So, if we're looking at training, we need to look at what weight are we can look at weight, we can look at reps, we can look at increasing rest times, etc. But my personal recommendation and what works best for me is you start at a weight that you fail anywhere between, 6 to 12 reps, 8 to 12 reps, whatever. And then if you hit, say, let's say you hit 10 reps, the next week you try to hit 11, the next week you try to hit 12 on the corresponding set, and you just go up until you hit 12, and then you increase in weight after that. But ultimately, the goal is we need our improvement to really be focused on one variable if our goal is hypertrophy and we already know everything else is going to work out anyway. So we need to figure out what our macro or calorie goal is, and which usually I'm just always recommend for protein, 1 gram per pound of body weight. Carbs and fats, realistically, you can kind of split up however you want to, as long as the total, the calorie total at the end of the week is the same thing. And make sure that you have your meals planned out so that you know exactly what meals you're going to eat and when, because it's going to make it that much easier for you to stay on track. You don't make have to make as many hard decisions, kind of like I said previously. So this is, it's more of a mental game than anything whenever it comes to plateauing. But a lot of it is actually just you need as many consistent things as possible with very few variables changing so that you can focus on the 1 to 2 that you can manipulate in order to see what happens on a week-to-week basis. Next, we got to look at your sleep and recovery. So what time are you going to bed, right? You have to pick a time that you're going to bed at night. And I usually say, hey, a 30-minute window is okay, but like you need to be in bed by a certain time. My personal, thing that I do is like my goal is to get 8 hours, right? So I sleep from 10 to 6 a.m. every day. I'm trying to be in bed by, between 9:30 and 10, trying to go to sleep by 10 at night. So it can be different for you. Either way, try to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, but have a consistent 30-minute window where you are winding down and getting into bed. And because if you're not sleeping enough, then you're not going to grow, because when you sleep, your body goes through all of these super complex hormonal processes. Like when we think about muscle growth, growth hormone always, pops up into our mind. This is whenever that's produced the most. So you need to make sure that you're sleeping enough in order to elicit that response from your body, because if you don't get enough sleep, your body doesn't have enough time to actually drive those hormones and have them do all of the things that they do. And so you also have to start thinking about, like, if your goal is recovery, it's not just about getting back to where you were before, which I think a lot of people think that. It's about getting back to that plus a little bit more. Because if we're staying at the same baseline the whole time, we're only recovering to the same spot, we're not going to grow. So just get this idea in your mind that you have to not only recover, but like think of it like recovery plus, right? So you want to recover +1. And then your next session, it'll go down, and then you want to recover again, +1. And that is where, if you start to think about it that way, you'll start to see like, oh, okay, I'm not trying to destroy myself in the gym, but I need to make sure that I'm recovering enough so that I can consistently get back above the baseline that I already was at before. So I think that something that a lot of people also don't consider is like you have to set the right mental frame. A lot of this is going to be very boring. It's going to be monotonous. A lot of times you're not going to want to do it, but you have to go in with the proper expectations, because if you go in with those expectations of it being hard, when you get to the actual point when it is hard, you'll be able to like tell yourself like, hey, I knew this was going to happen. Your mind will also know, hey, we were warned about this. So it's going to make it easier for us to continue, to move forward. It's kind of like you're not getting mollywopped with, just life stuff all the time. So just set the frame that things are going to pop up. So if we have as much consistency and structure in our training and our planning as possible, ultimately we are going to, be able to get through inconveniences and periods of time where we don't feel like training in order to get the ultimate result that we're after. And, whenever you're setting this mental frame, like you have to think, in order to get results that you've never gotten, you're going to have to do some things you've never done before, and they're not exactly going to be comfortable. So I think, what a lot of people get stuck at is like, oh, I've always done this. Yeah, and that's gotten you here. But in order to get to the next level, you're going to have to do things differently. Like it's just a requirement. It's like goes back to, our bodies being a biological system. Our bodies want homeostasis. So in order to get it out of homeostasis or balance, in order to grow, we have to be able to go to that place that is super uncomfortable for us to actually go to. And usually it's a pain in the ass and it's not going to be easy, but if you want it, it's something that you're going to have to push through, and ultimately you will come out on the other side better. And every single time you do that, it stacks one on top of the next on top of the next. And then in the future, if you ever do run into a plateau, it's going to make it that much easier to be able to, course correct and adjust accordingly. You have to approach this like being a student again. It's going to be really inconvenient. You're going to have some growing pains because you might have to learn some new concepts or learn how to move in a different way that you've never done before. And honestly, you might have to, drop the weight on a lot of your exercises because maybe you notice like, hey, my technique, it might be good in terms of powerlifting, as far as like just using leverages to get, a weight from point A to point B. But in terms of hypertrophy, I'm not getting that much of a stimulus in this muscle. So I need to learn how to move better so that I can elicit more of a hypertrophic response for said muscle. And that can be very ego damaging for a lot of us, right? Because, we think we know what to do, but truth is, like, I don't think anybody really has a clue on everything of what they need to do. And so we always need to remain students of the game and continue to, increase our knowledge base, learn what, not just about, the concepts of, what makes a muscle grow, but also like in ourselves. What do we individually respond to? What keeps us consistent and going into the gym as much as possible? And what, for me anyway, it develops this sense of like, excitement. Like I'm constantly learning something new. Therefore, every single training session has something novel and new to, give me. And I think that's what keeps a lot of people going back is novelty. And like that, our brains love it. Like we love new stuff. So why not every single session have a new thing that you're going to work on? That way you're excited to actually go into the gym and try new things out. And the other thing that I don't think a lot of people, think about too much is like, you have to consider the emotional side of things too. Like you have to prepare for the fact that you're not going to feel like it. I know I've said it 1,000 times, but like really think about your emotions here. Your emotions drive pretty much 100% of the decisions that you make in life. So get in tune with how you're feeling in certain situations and just understand that there are times that you're really not going to want to. And if you want to bust through these plateaus, you're going to have to push forward and move through the things that you've been avoiding this whole time. And the last and probably and the last but certainly not least tip here for busting through a plateau is you got to train like a fucking animal. I mean, you have to get after it and you have to go in with an intensity after that you set up for the first week, but you have to go in with an intensity that you have never done before, because I'm telling you, this unlocks something in your brain where your confidence goes up. And when your confidence goes up, you want to do that thing more. And when you want to do that thing more, you get the result that you're looking for. So I hope this helped, and I hope this kind of maybe gives somebody some guidance into, like, if you've been struggling with a plateau, like, you're going to be able to get through it, and hopefully you can add some of these things and, get more results for yourself. But if you would like any clarification on anything, or you think that maybe I need another video on any one of these points super specifically, just leave a comment. You can contact me. My contact info is in the description, and I will be dropping a course on hypertrophy. It'll be probably anywhere from 4 to 6 hours of content. I'm only going to charge $20 for it. So if that would be of interest to you, just leave a comment and say something like, hey, that course sounds great. But other than that, till next time, peace.